All right, 1, 2, 3. So we recently was able to have the blessing of having another child added to our life, a little baby girl. And I'm gonna let Holly do most of the talking because it's really her experience.
It happened to me.
But I just wanted to kind of introduce ourselves as Ninja Nation, Richard, Holly, and our 2 children, the latest of which was born as a complete miracle from God. So,
both of them technically were miracles.
Yes.
But so at 32 weeks, I found out that she was breech when she was head down the entire time. And the midwife that we had at the time I said, so what do we do at this point? And she said, well, you'd have a C-section. At that point, I thought there has to be another way, because this was the same midwife that we had with our son, and he was the birth was absolutely amazing. I got to have him at home, water birth. It was 4.5 hours, and he came in perfect. There was nothing wrong with him. Everything was beautiful, and she showed up probably about an hour before he was born, and it just went really smoothly. So I already had that in my mind. So when she said that I had to have a C-section, that immediately threw my plans out the window. And not bashing any woman that chooses to have a C-section, but for me, that was definitely out of the question, especially since this entire time I was healthy, and so was baby girl. She had, I mean, her heart rate never fluctuated. She was always progressing ahead of the scale of where she was supposed to be. So, plus in the beginning, I was already getting fear-mongered from the Western medicine because they said I was geriatric because I was 34. And technically you're geriatric if you're 35. So because I was going to be 35 for 1 month of this pregnancy, then I was geriatric. So we got a chiropractor, a cranial sacral therapist. I did spinning babies religiously, day in and day out. All I was doing was hanging out pretty much upside down, doing the ice on the top, the heat on the bottom.
Flashlight.
The flashlight, the music.
The moxibustion.
The moxibustion.
A weekend of acupuncture.
A weekend of acupuncture. So, but the stress of our baby girl being breech was really hard on me. And I feel actually kind of bad for our baby girl because it put a lot of stress on her too. Everybody just wanted her to flip. And that was not God's design for her. So it was difficult. Especially since my son was technically getting neglected because I was doing everything I could to flip her, including regular versions. So one day I was at cranial sacral, and I want to say I was at week 37. Week 37. And we were constantly driving very far. It was like 45 minutes to an hour away from our home, up in a town called Enumclaw. So they say that if you've already given birth, that your second childbirth could be anywhere from 37 to 40 plus weeks, right? Or they say usually 2 weeks before and 2 weeks after you can give birth. So we're like, I could give birth at any minute, you know, and we're already thinking that it's going to be faster because my first labor was only 4.5 hours total. So he was on the phone with her and pretty much asked her, what's our plan? We need a birth plan. We do not even have one, because she wouldn't even give us the kit, the birth kit. She didn't have me start taking any of the supplements they normally have you taking within a month, like gentle birth and things like that, which she had us doing last time. So we didn't get any of that, and so my husband stood up to her and said, hey look, we don't have a plan, so what do we do? And she was like, what do you mean? You get baby to flip, and then once you get baby to flip, then we'll have a plan. We'll make a plan. And so that kind of frustrated him because it's like, that's not a plan, and that adds to the stress. I mean, because not only was I full-blown pregnant and getting pretty uncomfortable, I had a toddler that was very stressed, and a husband that was always at work up very far away, like 2 hours away from us, and trying to flip the baby. And then we didn't even have a birth plan. So it was like, I had no idea what to expect or what we were going to be doing. I had stayed up late that night. I couldn't sleep. I had a lot of stress going on. And I just started researching, like, is it possible to have a breech home birth? And I just started doing all of the research that I could. And then with doing that, I tried to find a practitioner that would do it in Washington State. And I could not, I mean, the internet was really not forthcoming with anything except for there was a school in Issaquah called WARM, like those were the acronym. And it was like about teaching midwifery from every angle. Like, so every situation, be ready for, essentially, because you never know. And so when I stayed up and decided that, all right, I'm going to check out this WARM website, and I'm going to see if they suggest any midwives. And they did not. So I thought, well, now what am I going to do? So all that I was really coming up with in my searches was malpractice suits against midwives that children were born deceased, or something had gone wrong and they ended up dying. So I didn't read any of those, obviously, because I have the type of mind that will literally squirrel out on that, and then I'll get paranoid that it's going to happen to me. So I thought, well, let me look at the board members of this WARM website. And so I was just scrolling through them, and I saw this one woman. Her name was Marie Wakefield, and I thought, wow, she looks really nice, because I have a really good judge of people. Like, I can usually tell if they're a good person or not. So I thought, wow, she looks like a really nice person. So then I researched her, or looked her up, and then she came up with her website was Natural Beginnings Midwifery. And it didn't say anything on their page about breech or anything. So I thought, hold on a second. Is that the same name that was on that paper the chiropractor gave me? So then I get up and I go look at the paper, and I'm like, it is! So the next day I'm telling my husband, I'm like, God is so good, because the chiropractor was trying to get me to come to this woman. I want to say that we were actually suggested to go to Marie Wakefield for our first pregnancy. So I thought, wow, God is really good. We have to, I mean, I got to at least follow it, because why does this keep coming into our world like this? And so that day I called her. I want to say it was a Sunday. And I had called her and explained our story. And with explaining our story, this woman was incredible, because she said, well, if you have your midwife appointment on Tuesday, why don't you go to that appointment, see if you can do another version and get baby to term. So she said that we could have a consultation with her after our appointment with our midwife if we decided that we wanted to see what our options were. And Richard and I were both like, well, that's a no-brainer. I guess at this point, if baby girl does not flip by the Tuesday appointment, then we're going to have to do this. That was the weekend that we had the acupuncturist come to our home 2 days in a row. So we spent a lot of not just time, but money trying to get this baby to flip. Because I was so afraid, because of all the fear-mongering there is about breech babies, and that, you know, every website you go to, you hear, oh, well, babies usually flip by 36, 37 weeks, and if they don't, you know, don't worry, they can flip at any time, and that only 3% of births end up being breech. So I'm like, there's no way I'm going to be in that category, right? Wrong. So anyway, So we had did the acupuncture and went to the midwife appointment, and then that's when she did 4 versions in one visit, because she felt like the baby was going to turn. She really did, and she didn't, and that's okay. I'm not a fan of hospitals, so unless I'm dying, I do not want to go there. So she pretty much said, well, you know, you do what you got to do. And I said, well, we found somebody in Puyallup nonetheless, which is literally 15 minutes from our house in Tacoma. We found her, and she does breech. And not only that, but she said that if I went into labor that weekend before our consultation, to call her and she would come attend our birth. Like, that to me is incredible, the fact that somebody would do that. And so when I had confronted her with the fact that we had found a midwife in Puyallup, she said, oh, Marie Wakefield? Knew exactly who it was. So to me, I tried not to get angry, because it was frustrating that our current midwife had known that there was a practitioner close to where I live that does breech births and did not tell me. Because to me, that tells me you did not have my best interest in mind at all. And so I just told her, I said, well, we have to do what we have to do. And she said, well, good luck getting an appointment with her, because she's a very busy midwife. And so essentially, like, making it seem like, well, if you can even get in with her. And at this point, I'd already talked to that other midwife. We made the conscious decision to set up the consultation with the midwife, Marie Wakefield. So we called her, and then I told her, yep, baby girl is still breech. We tried 4 versions at this appointment. No go. So then she pretty much got my whole story at that point before we set up the consultation. So we had the consultation with Marie, and it was incredible. We felt like we knew her our whole life. We were completely open and honest. We weren't trying to bash the midwife that we had at all, but it was just like, we also had to be forthcoming with the disappointment that we had had up until this point. There was literally no care. The midwife came out after we decided to go with her. We got everything switched over. She ordered all of my records up to that point. So on the day that I was supposed to give birth, which was June 22nd, a Saturday, that was when Marie Wakefield was able to actually come into our home and do just a home visit to see, you know, how everything was set up, and get ready for the entrance of our daughter. And so it was kind of just after that point, well, let's just wait and see what happens. And I want to now relieve the stress that's been on us this entire time, and on my daughter nonetheless. Like, I gotta forgive myself for that. But it was just difficult, because I know that my stress was her stress. And then I could actually thank God, when I should have been thanking him the entire time. But that was just my trial to go through. He had left and gone to Marie at 39 plus 2. That's what it was. So we jumped ship to her care at 39 plus 2. And I woke up the morning of 40 plus 2, which was Monday morning. I woke up at 12:45 with some pretty severe aches in my hips. And I thought, well, maybe that's baby trying to flip, because I had read that you can go into labor and the baby will flip, or getting ready for labor, baby will flip. I thought maybe that's what's happening. And it kept coming in surges. I had in no way thought it was labor, because it was nothing like what I had with my son. Because that was more from my back to the front, whereas this was my hips felt like they were going to explode. Ended up waking up my husband, just because I'm pretty noisy in labor. If you didn't watch our labor video, you will hear. And I think that just happens from going from 0 to 10 in no time. So my body does not have time to prepare. I'm gonna go with that. So my husband was like, do you want me to call the midwife? And I do remember saying, I mean, you should be a part of this part. I do remember saying, don't talk to me right now. I have to figure this out. Because I had no idea what I was feeling. You know, like I had said, I had woke up and then I had told myself this dialogue that baby girl was trying to flip. So that was what was happening. And so he wakes up and it's like, well,
she woke me up because she was hurting, and our son was sleeping next to me. I had reached over and grabbed my phone, trying not to wake him up, and I had just pulled up the first midwife that was on, which was Michelle, because Marie and Michelle work together. I had asked Holly, I was like, hey, you want me to call the midwife? And she's like, no. What I remember was, no, I am busy trying to figure this out. Just leave me alone to figure this out. And I'm like, fair enough. Well, I went back to remembering our consultation with Marie when she had said, if you go to if you hit two contractions, call me. And so she went from that one.
I had fast bursts.
And it was probably like 5 minutes, if that, from the first one to the second one. She's laughing. And so then once she hit the second one, I'm like, yep. And I called up Michelle. And I said, hey, Michelle, this is Richard, and introduced myself. And she knew who we were through Marie. And I said, you know, so I got to talking to Michelle a little bit, and she said, hey, is Holly at a place where she can talk? And I said, I don't know. Holly, are you at a place to talk? And Holly was like, yeah. So I handed the phone to Holly, and they ended up doing their thing.
Yeah, she was asking me questions, and I kept in the middle of talking to her.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, I can't talk right now. And I handed the phone back to Richard because I was like, I don't know why I'm even trying. Because it was just, I mean, they were coming so fast.
Quick. Yeah.
And then I had immediately thought about my first labor when his friend came to take part because she was a doula. And so she just wanted to be there as a friend. And so she, when we had called her, said, get in the shower and see if that relaxes things. And, you know, and if the pains stay, you're in labor. If they go away, then you're not in labor.
They stay.
I stayed in the shower. And then if you watched our birth video, you heard.
You hear
I
me
don't want to do this again.
You hear me and our son talking about you're going to have to do it again, babe.
Yeah. And so because it had happened so fast, it didn't, I mean, I always think that, you know, I'm jealous of the women that get longer labors because it's like they get to relax into it and kind of, okay, so this one's not really that bad, and they get to have their husband and they're doing the rocking thing and getting their back rubbed and getting pampered, right? I know that labor sucks, but I would like that pamper time, because to go from 0 to hero
in less than an hour.
And he's never there.
For both of them. First birth, I was trying to fill the birthing tub. Didn't even work. I should have just let the midwife and her assistant do it, her daughter. And then I was busy filling up the birthing pool that literally never, like, it didn't even have it had the liner on it. And that was it. Because I got stopped putting the hose connection to the shower by our midwife saying, yeah, you need to get behind her. And I didn't know.
We need to get her off the toilet.
Yeah, I need to get her off the toilet. And later on, it'll show up in the video too, where she was rumping while she was sitting on the toilet. So this little baby girl.
Which is what they call breech babies when they're coming in with their butt.
Yeah.
They call it rumping instead of crowning.
So.
And I did that on the toilet, and I felt it happening, and I didn't care.
And I just remember when I helped her get down off the toilet, I happened to look down and I saw just a slight peek of our baby's butt. And I was like, oh, it is go time.
I was literally
now.
about to have her on the toilet.
What? And it happened so fast. I'm glad they kept record of it. 5 minutes. It's
fast. 5 minutes in the stage 2 labor. But that's not what it's about. So what this is about is breech and the fear-mongering that comes along with it. Because with her and my son, we're totally different. I don't remember not being able to push with him. Like, I want to say that with the contractions, the midwife was telling me to push.
Yes.
Okay, so with her, I was literally on the toilet and I had no control over the pushing. It was just, this is happening. And that's why she started to rump on the toilet, because I had no control over it. A breech birth, or if there is a complication, the woman's body will try to make things speed up quicker to get past the dangerous situation. Because our bodies are very incredible. I mean, incredible. So I just
Women's
started
body is
uncontrollably pushing, and I told the midwife that. I'm like, I can't stop pushing. And then that's when she said in her head, like, we gotta get her off the toilet. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say though is, because I was healthy and the baby was healthy, besides that one tiny little, and I mean it literally was less than a minute that was even a concern about the heart rate drop.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
it was literally seconds. So, and then baby was just here.
Yep.
And I mean, that total labor from me waking up to giving birth was 1 hour and 55 minutes. So it was pretty incredible. And I'm not saying that women that choose a C-section are wrong, because everybody is different and everybody has a different story. But for me, I could not let a C-section be my story. I've already had brain surgery, and I've had laparoscopic surgeries, and it's not something that I wanted a part of my life or my daughter's life.
And since it wasn't a health emergency
And since there was no emergency situation, I thought, well, I'm going to have this baby at home. And it just shows how God's hand was in it, because when I was trying to birth the placenta, which it turns out the reason why she was breech was because my umbilical cord was short. And I don't know if this had anything to do with her being breech, but I had a very small placenta, which usually comes with malnutrition for baby, lack of oxygen, health problems for baby.
Stillbirth,
20% stillbirth. So for me, it was, wow, how can you not see God's hand in that? Because the midwife we had previous, like I said, she did 10 versions, and these were not like, oh, let's see if baby will go with it. This was like, we're going to get this baby to turn. And it's like God's hand was put on her. And her name is Ataya, which means God with me. And it totally showed that God was with her, because it was like he had her hand on her every time she was manually forced to turn. And she didn't move. Yet, when the midwife was trying to get me to deliver my placenta, which I guess can take longer when you have a small placenta or a problem. Anyway. So with that, she lightly tried to help.
like, kind of coaxing it out with her fingers.
Yeah, just barely pulling on it.
touching
Like, yeah, barely touching on it, trying to use traction to get it to come out, not actually pulling on it. And it tore. So, realistically, how was she manually being forcibly turned externally from my belly and not have that tear and have me hemorrhage or her die? You know, it's just, it's an incredible story that I'm glad that we got to have, and we totally put our trust in Jesus Christ. I want to say the entire time, but we're not perfect, so I let fear get in there for a minute.
From my perspective,
Yeah.
you know, it was pretty difficult wrestling through the stress of being like, I don't want my wife gutted because she's healthy and baby is healthy. So why is that the only option? Why is that the only thing we've got going on, and we don't even have a plan? Once we got a hold of Marie, and she was like, hey, look, I mean, we'll set up this consultation. If you go into labor over the weekend, I got your back. And I was like, that's awesome. Like, there was just so much relief. And God put it on Holly's heart to put this video together. And Holly and I are just blessed to have a healthy baby girl show up into this world in our home. And, you know, so we're both excited. And that's my 2 bits plus. We just hope and pray that this video is encouraging to the mothers and the dads to be. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. And have a blessed day. All right. Ninja Nation out.
Deuces. Yeah, I just lost my train of thought because you walked in. So anyways, I'm not bashing any. You're going to have to do a lot of editing.
That's fine.
He was gone the first birth trying to fill the tub, and it was all horrible. So, so we had.
So that makes me senile since I'm
Yeah,
older than her.
you're so elderly.
Yeah. We'll have dentures soon.
Yeah. So, where's that cookie? I want to eat that cookie.
Yeah.
And my water, please.
Yes.
Thank you. I can hear my son outside. Richard is back with the baby. Got her to sleep. You literally just summed up the entire video. We can just put that and cut everything else.
Whatever.
Go give it to Daddy. Richard.
What is that? Thank you. And what is this? Did you give me a card? What is this for, Boogie?
Is that what I think it is?
We're pregnant.
Really?
Yeah.
You're gonna get a little baby.
Didn't you
brother or
notice his
sister.
shirt?
I didn't even see it.
It says Big Brother.
What? You're gonna be a big brother.
Yeah.